no. With the whole multiverse thing, it's just been miss after miss after miss.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Ryan Reynolds and the director of Deadpool and Wolverine just confirmed a bunch of new Easter eggs that I haven't seen a ton of people talking about recently. Some were a little easier to spot than others, and some were some super deep cuts for much older movies. All of them, in most cases, were meant to be Ryan Reynolds ripping on Hugh Jackman, which he does every chance he gets. As much as the references in the movie make fun of Disney, Marvel, Kevin Feige, at every turn Fox Marvel movies, most of the movie is Ryan Reynolds making fun of himself and making fun of Hugh Jackman, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. There's a bunch of big stuff that's getting started the next couple weeks. This first one actually comes at the beginning of the movie during the opening dance number. The hidden detail isn't the NSYNC Bye Bye Bye. Everybody spotted that. Like, even if you never listened to NSYNC, I think people got that reference. It's actually when Deadpool pulls Wolverine's Adamantium skeleton from his grave in the Logan movie and starts using it as a weapon against the TVA agents. During the dance montage, when he goes full Wolverinepool, trying to use the claws himself, the opening dance titles, when they shift between regular, speed, slow motion, he starts swinging the body parts around. Ryan Reynolds said that he wanted Wolverine's skull to still have a tiny bit of skin left on it when he pulled it out of the grave, so when he whacks the TVA agent with like a morning star, the blow is supposed to rip the rest of the skin off of that skull to reveal the Adamantium skull. And even though this is already meant to be a big joke on the Logan movie ending, like a big Hugh Jackman joke, the real reference, like super deep cut here, when they're still in the slow motion part of the sequence, you can see the underside of Wolverine's skull, and he's got the number 24601 etched on the underside of his mouth. If you have not followed Hugh Jackman's non-Wolverine, non-Marvel movies over the years, or you're not a huge fan of musicals just in general, 24601 is a Prisoner 24601 reference to his character Jean Valjean from the Les Mis movie back in 2012.
Now, Prisoner 24601, your time is up and your parole's begun.
Ryan Reynolds has made several jokes about this over the years. Deadpool makes the same joke during Deadpool 2 when he's playing the heist to yoink Fire Fist from the prison convoy later in the movie with X-Force. There's a ton of Easter eggs and references all over his drawing here. But this was meant to be right before all the X-Force team members die in hilarious ways. Personally, side note, I like the theory that Domino stole all their luck with her special power, with her mutant ability, and that's what caused them to die. Like, they're not idiots, Domino just stole all their luck.
How exactly did that happen?
Well, the police say gravity, but if just between us, they didn't test well in the focus group, particularly Cable.
Hugh Jackman is also a famous song and dance man in real life. That's why he had the Greatest Showman references in the Deadpool and Wolverine movie too. Like, there's a Greatest Showman Deadpool in the Deadpool core. He's done a ton of musicals in real life, a ton of Broadway plays. Most of you have probably seen some of this somewhere. You can let me know in the comments if you've actually gone to one of his Broadway shows. They even use the Greatest Showman theme song during their fight in the minivan when they're messing with the dial of the radio. One of the stations it turns to as they begin the fight is the Greatest Showman theme song before they knock it again, changing the station to another song. Like, are we going to have a fight here to the Greatest Showman? Nope, it's going to be another song. And maybe this shouldn't be a surprise, but there's another deleted scene when they were going to make Hugh Jackman sing in the movie. It would have been a big song and dance number when he's in his Wolverine costume. Like, it would have come later in the movie when his Wolverine starts to open up about his traumatic past, what really happened to his X-Men team, how they all died, and what happened to him after that. You can guess why they chose to get rid of that song and dance number. Like, they thought it was just too much for the movie, both needing to reduce the runtime. Like, it was a pretty short movie if you're thinking about the runtimes of most Marvel movies. But it also kind of drugged the pacing of the movie down to a halt, and they wanted things to move quicker towards the end of the movie. You have to imagine this sort of stopping the action of the movie for him to turn and start to do this extended song and dance number. So you can kind of feel the pace of the movie grind to a halt while he's doing that. What they wound up doing, though, is they did most of his X-Men backstory from his universe when he's talking to X-23, and earlier when Cassandra Nova makes him relive those memories of his dead X-Men next to all their graves. There's also another long-running Hugh Jackman Wolverine Les Mis joke that goes all the way back to X-Men Days of Future Past before that movie came out, which was released in 2014, so this is a long time ago. He wound up singing a Wolverine musical to the theme song from Les Mis. Now, I can't play the whole song that he sings because of copyright reasons, but this is what it sounds like.
Who am I? I'm Wolverine.
The other reason why Ryan Reynolds keeps making Hugh Jackman Les Mis jokes over the years is because that's his only Oscar nomination in his entire career, like Hugh Jackman's only Oscar nomination for Best Leading Actor. He did not wind up winning, which Ryan Reynolds reminds him about often. There are 4 separate John Candy references and Easter eggs, most of them to planes, trains, and automobiles, but one of them is not. If you didn't realize or you haven't seen him talk about him, Ryan Reynolds' favorite comedian in real life is John Candy. Like, he's a huge John Candy stan. He grew up watching John Candy on all of his stuff. So anytime he gets a chance, he loves talking about John Candy. He even references a lot of real-life anniversaries on his social media. John Candy is also a famous Canadian, just like Ryan Reynolds, and he grew up watching John Candy on SCTV, so that's why you see a lot of SCTV references that he makes in present day. For instance, he just did a Mint Mobile commercial with Rick Moranis, not because of Rick Moranis' other movies that he's famous for, but because he's such a huge SCTV fan. The very first planes, trains, and automobiles reference is during the opening scene, like the very opening scene when he's digging up Wolverine's body. Notice the mug, clear in frame, I like me, he steals from the TVA agent later in the movie. The quote on the mug is based on John Candy's iconic speech from that movie.
I like me. My wife likes me. My customers like me. Because I'm the real article.
They also keep bringing that TVA agent back in the movie. He's meant to give you John Candy vibes. When Deadpool is changing out of his work clothes at the car dealership, also at the beginning of the movie into the Hawaiian shirt, it's also meant to be a John Candy reference. Technically, it's not planes, trains, and automobiles. It's John Candy in Brewster's Millions, but it's meant to be the same Hawaiian shirt. Inside his locker, you can see the book, The Canadian Mounted. That's the same book that John Candy's character is reading during Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Later, when Deadpool and Wolverine are stuck in the void, about to meet Nicepool, aka Van Milder, in Dogpool, they walk past the wreckage of this car. The car is meant to be the exact same one from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. During that movie, the car gets totally wrecked. It's hilarious, but the joke is that the two of them caused the Nexus event in the car, then got pruned by the TVA, so theoretically, for a while at least, there was a version of John Candy running around on the void. Then at the very end of the movie, when they're eating shawarma, making the Avengers post-credit scene jokes, Ryan Reynolds said that this scene is framed to look just like this scene from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
You know the Avengers discovered shawarma. Oh.
And one of the billion new projects that Ryan Reynolds is working on outside of all the Deadpool and Marvel stuff is that he's making a documentary about John Candy in real life, but it's not going to be out for a couple years. One of the other big deep-cut movie references I haven't seen a ton of people talking about is the Star Trek reference. During the final battle, when Deadpool and Wolverine are trying to destroy the Time Ripper, Deadpool tricks Wolverine so that he can be the one to sacrifice himself. He locks the door behind him. Notice that he makes the Spock live long and prosper symbol reference with his hand. It's meant to be a joke reference to the end from Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, when Spock sacrifices himself to stop the warp core from destroying the entire ship, saving the crew. Then there's a couple new variants they also revealed the past week or so. They seem to reveal new variants like every single week. These are a couple that didn't make the final cut. There was a Weapon X version of Wolverine. He was going to be a variant that Deadpool saw during the montage at the beginning of the movie when he sees all the different versions of Wolverine in different realities. Presumably, Deadpool would have seen this Weapon X Wolverine literally right after he breaks out of the Weapon X facility in Canada, right after getting the Adamantium bonded to his skeleton. Most of you will remember the Fox X-Men movies have referenced this event multiple times in many different movies. There was the more on-the-nose X-Men Apocalypse scene where the younger X-Men team find Wolverine literally having just gotten the adamantium bonded to his skeleton. They help him escape, taking out a bunch of the guards on his way out the door. Wolverine Origins is literally the entire story of how that all went down and how he joined the Weapon X program in the first place. And even earlier, during X-Men 2, he visits the old Weapon X facility where he got the adamantium. Now, there were some recastings of characters, and even though it's meant to be the same timeline because of the Days of Future Past, that Weapon X tank, the facility looks way different from the ones in both Wolverine Origins and then later during X-Men Apocalypse. So, like, all the different Weapon X scenes of Wolverine look a little bit different. One of the funny things that Ryan Reynolds said when he was sort of paying homage to all the Fox era of Marvel movies, like right after Deadpool and Wolverine came out, he basically said the entire movie was meant to be a love letter to that era of Marvel movies, them sort of saying goodbye, which is why they used the NSYNC Bye 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 song at the beginning of the movie. and why during the end credits they had all the behind the scenes from those different movies. One of the terms that he used to describe that era of Marvel movies at Fox was wildly inconsistent, like very uneven, just because the continuity was all over the place, where like new movies would come out and just completely not care or forget about stuff that they did in previous movies. If you lived through that era of Marvel movies, like you grew up watching all those movies, you remember all those conversations like, how come this is different? Like, why are they recasting this? What's going on here? Well, they don't care about all this old stuff. They eventually did try to bridge all those timeline inconsistencies during Days of Future Past to explain how everything was part of the same timeline, but there were still some questions that were raised later on. But it didn't completely solve all their continuity issues. There's actually a couple ways the Loki series has sort of tied up all those inconsistencies. That's like a completely separate video I could do in the future. I am sure we'll be talking about this when Secret Wars comes out and a lot of these other actors come back from those old movies. There's another Deadpool variant. This is meant to be a Lucha Libre Deadpool that would have just been part of the Deadpool Corps in that big fight at the end of the movie. This one is just called Pajamapool, like a Deadpool in pajamas that's a little bit younger. And this grandma-looking version of Deadpool is a big Golden Girls joke. Long-running thing that Deadpool is a Golden Girls stan in the comics that just carried forward into the movies. His katanas used to be named Bea and Arthur. They just updated that name. It's still a Golden Girls reference, but the name is slightly different for Deadpool and Wolverine. So that's why they had Betty White, who was also in Golden Girls, doing promos for the first Deadpool movie when she was still alive, R.I.P. So the joke here is that there was a version of Deadpool who actually was part of the Golden Girls in the reality that they came from. Like a Golden Girl Deadpool. But the other big new variant that we learned about metaphorically and literally was a female version of the Juggernaut. I'm assuming they chose to go with the other Juggernaut in the movie because they wanted someone that looked a little bit more like Vinnie Jones' version from X-Men The Last Stand. Like this female version would have been too different, so maybe they thought the joke would get watered down too much because people would be thinking more about it being a female version rather than just them clowning on Vinnie Jones' version in general. For those of you asking why they got variants of all the X-Men characters from previous movies, like why didn't they just get the original actors to come back and play their characters? Most of it was because of budget and scheduling issues, like some of the actors that would have come back if they could have were busy filming other things. It's also one of the reasons why he made the Chris Evans Human Torch joke about him destroying the budget of the movie. Like that's why they didn't get all the X-Men people to come back like the original actors. Do not worry if you're sad that they didn't include some of the really big X-Men characters. That's because they're saving some of those for Avengers Secret Wars. Also because the budget of Secret Wars is going to be like triple the budget of Deadpool and Wolverine. Speaking of which, Deadpool and Wolverine is now the 7th highest earning Marvel movie of any kind from any studio. It's probably not going to beat Avengers Age of Ultron, but it might actually get close to beating Black Panther. We'll see about that. It's supposed to come out on DVD in October, so I think that's going to kill its chances for actually beating the Black Panther box office. When it does come out, I'll give away some of the copies in my Marvel-related videos because there'll be a bunch of big Marvel stuff happening during that period. I've already done several videos on a lot of the deleted scenes and Easter eggs from Deadpool and Wolverine, so I'll post links for some of those videos in the description below. There was a lot of stuff that they cut out of this movie, as you would expect. The next real big things that are coming up is we have Captain America 4. There'll be more trailers for that soon because it's like the next big Marvel movie that's coming out in February, so expect a couple really big trailers for that before the end of the year. There's a whole bunch of Scarlet Witch stuff happening during the Agatha series. I'll be doing episode videos for that starting next week. And we're supposed to get that Spider-Man TV show before the end of the year. Of course, I will do episode videos for that too. There's also a brand new Venom The Last Dance trailer they're releasing later this week. Of course, I'll do a video for that. Click here for that. I'll update the link as soon as I post it. And click here for that Deadpool and Wolverine Thor deleted scene and why Thor was crying in the first place. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.